Yeah. So, hi everyone, and welcome to LFC Transfer Room. You've got myself and Drew with you, with Louis coming a little bit later today. This is the LFC chat room. So this is the one that's controlled by you, and it's all about what you want to say and talking about the comments that you leave to us. So please make sure that you're active in the chat as we try and talk about, 10 years on, as it says in the title, 10 years on, Carabao Cup victory. And we saw in the chat beforehand, Anthony asked a question, and I'm going to start with that one for you, Drew. Is Henderson a better captain than Gerrard?
On the pitch, I don't think so. I think he is very good at barking orders. So I think from that standpoint, he's good at organization. But I don't think that's a job that's unique. Like, I think anyone can do that. You see Virgil doing it. You see Milner doing it when he's on the pitch. So behind the scenes, I'm not sure. Like, I know I read stories about him welcoming players into the squad and being there for new guys and doing that kind of behind the scenes stuff. But again, I don't know if that's not a job someone else can do. So I don't think he's a better captain than Gerrard, but I honestly almost don't know how much weight being a captain has at this point, other than ceremony.
Well, this is true. You see some people in the media say, captains just organise tickets for family, and they don't do much of it. But Liverpool seem to have that leadership team, don't they? They've got Henderson, Milner, and Van Dijk in their leadership team. And you think back 10 years ago when we won it, leadership team was probably Gerrard and Carragher. So very different sort of type of professionals. We both live and breathe football and stuff. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Captains don't mean anything. Matty is saying in chat, I'm still recovering, very drunk celebration last night. I think you were saying something similar before, Drew, a bit of a tentative start to the day.
Yeah, I definitely told the bosses I'd be checking in late, so definitely doing that. But James, following up on the Henderson comment, do you think that the captaincy adds unnecessary pressure to him?
I don't think it adds unnecessary pressure to him. I think Henderson actually quite likes that pressure. I think certain players it can have a negative impact on them. Probably, my example wouldn't be football, but I think about England cricket, and I think about Joe Root, who's England's cricket captain, and used to be, was one of the best run scorers in world cricket. I think he was number one batsman, and has now dropped to around about number 6, 7 in the world. I think certain captain jobs are a really big pressurized situation. I think the football one probably isn't as much, because you are talking about a leadership team more than a singular focal point. I can't think of a sport
maybe a different way.
Yeah.
Different way of looking. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that question would be, do you think the captaincy kind of maybe saves him or gives him more precedence in the team? Like, if he wasn't the captain, do you think we'd see him starting as much?
You see, I'm not on the Henderson isn't good enough bandwagon. I think, we saw it the other week when we played a game and we played Harvey and Thiago together against Inter Milan, and Perisic just had free run down the right-hand side. I think Henderson gives that nice balance. If he gets involved in the attack, he gets involved in the defence. Yes, he's not a world beater, shall we say, but he is a consistent 7 out of 10, which I think you need in your leaders. You need someone that's not going to drop too low or jump too high. But, let's not ignore the pass he did for Luis Diaz's goal against Leeds. That is a world-class pass, no matter how you look at it. So I don't think he gets in the team because he's captain. I think he is a captain, and those abilities do help him in the team. So I don't know if that really answers it. It's kind of a yes and no at the same time.
Yeah. I kind of Like, my love of Henderson, like, started off really well, like, when he first joined the team. I think his 14-15 season was his best season. The season after Suarez left, he had an amazing season on the field and stats-wise, and, I think that the injuries really set him back for the next few years, but, I'm starting to fall in love with him again because I think he does a lot of the dirty work. Like, a lot of people describe him as like running around the pitch, like just with his head cut off. And I actually think that's really exactly a good job to like pressure the other team. And it's like a Milner light in terms of stamina. I see him having the stamina abilities that Milner does at his age if he can stay fit. So I think he does a lot of the unsung, tasks on the field. But he's also got some quality. My question is there a better player potentially who can slot in? I'm wondering with the competition and the places, if the future of the team, if he's playing more of a squad role.
Yeah, and I think the Henderson thing for me is a lot of times always running around like a headless chicken, but he's the one that's starting the trap in the press, isn't he? He's the one that starts the movement. He's leading that team in that offensive defense almost. So he's running into space to push them into the tackler, and people say he's running around like a headless chicken, where I think Kris, who does some of the tactical analysis, explains Henderson's role really well at times to go, well, actually, his job is to just make the opposition players run down an alley and lose the ball so that we can win it in the top third. I can see Louis hasn't shaved the slug off his face yet. He's sticking with it.
Hello. Sorry I'm late, everybody. But let me know where we're up to. Sounds like we're talking about, was it Anthony's question about Gerrard and Henderson?
Yeah, is Henderson a better captain than Gerrard, Louis?
Remove all context and pure trophy wise, absolutely. He's led us to, there's not a Gerrard shuffle. There's not a special Gerrard trophy lift. It depends on which way you want to argue it. I am an emotional guy, so I always bring in context. I'm sure you two agree as well. At the end of the day, Gerrard far and away the best player, the best leader, had to put up with the most crap. Like, we all know that if Henderson was in that team that Gerrard had to lead for so long, he wouldn't have what he has now. He is surrounded by a lot of amazing players. We wouldn't go as far to say as to carry him, but we can see what people think in the chat. I think a lot of people would say that in our strongest 11, if you insert Henderson into it, whether you think he deserves to be in the best 11 or not, for a lot of people, he's probably their weakest person. He's probably the first one they'd look to replace necessarily. But if you agree with that, do get involved in the comments and let us know.
Looking at the comments, should have kept the beard, Louis. Let your beard brother down here, Matthias. He's very disappointed.
I'm going to shave the rest of it off, the stubble as well. I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to do a rebuild. Klopp 2015. I'm going to do a full rebuild. So, Drew, imagine Gerrard in this team. Where would he fit? If you were to put Gerrard in this team, would he play on the right in the Henderson role? Would you put him on the left where Thiago is driving the ball in? Where would you put him in this? Apart from obviously anywhere he wants to be because it's Gerrard. But...
Yeah, I was about to say the latter, but maybe I don't know. Like, I liked it when he was pairing Torres, like when he played more in the free range, like attacking midfield, kind of in the number 10. But I don't know. He'd obviously play in the midfield. Right or attacking midfield would be it for me. And I think he'd be like, not necessarily, he wouldn't be the same like type of player, but he'd have the same sort of aura about him as like Kevin De Bruyne. Like, I think he'd be that player in the Liverpool team where everyone would be like, good Lord. Like, obviously that's who he was. When he played, everyone wanted him. But I think he'd bring us that level of, if we had somebody like him, just another like person of that quality, because I think you see it in defense. We have, guys like Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, Trent, Robbo, Matip even, our attacking three. But in the center midfield, we, have Fabinho, who's a huge anchor. And Thiago, but maybe that Gerrard adds that final piece to the crown.
So to just play devil's advocate, a bit of the old Gerrard Lampards, Louis, you've got Trent on the right doing those whipped balls into the centre. You've got Gerrard on the right doing those whipped balls into the centre and taking the long shots. Is it unbalanced? Do you need more of a water carrier on that right side of midfield than you would a Gerrard world beater, or is it just a good problem to have?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I don't know, because I think Kris, I always go back to it when we talk about the midfield three. Kris made a good video about how we're actually kind of playing like an asymmetrical 4-2-3-1, and the right-sided 8 is more of a attacking-minded role. So the interesting thing is that there are a lot of iterations of Steven Gerrard, not to sort of dodge the question, but there are different versions of him.
The
like in his latter
version,
years.
there's the...
Yes, looks-wise as well, haircut-wise, of course. But, in the latter years of his career, we saw him as more of a deep-lying playmaker, I'd say. I don't know if my mind forgives me. But as you said, in his younger years, he was much more of a world beater. I think he could, to be fair, he could play that left-hand role. He could play that Thiago role. I'm not going to say they're particularly similar as players, but both extremely confident on the ball. In his later years, he could dictate games. He could play alongside Fabinho. Like, he's not an out-and-out CDM, but playing that supporting role whilst being given the freedom and the range to pick passes. Like, could you imagine Gerrard on the left next to Fabinho, pinging balls out to Trent on the right wing? Like, how many times that would happen in a game and how many chances that could lead to? I think, there would definitely have been room for Gerrard in this team, no doubt in my mind.
So make sure that you get your questions in, because obviously this is the LFC chat room where we're going to be talking about anything that you want to talk about. I'm going to ask Drew the worst question and then sort of mute myself, which is, would Jamie Carragher make this squad with the centre-backs we've got?
I think he'd be the first one to say no. But, or at least, the very least, he wouldn't be starting centre-backs. He'd be off the bench. And I think he could actually... I don't know. I will keep singing the same song of having players in the squad who support the team from when they're young. Like, I think that just adds an extra 20% to their game. Having that drive, that love for the club. So I'd be curious if he would fit in with the squad nowadays, but he definitely seems to be, have quite the skill at bantering as a pundit. So I think he'd be an interesting mix in the dressing room. As for on the field, I wouldn't mind seeing him in the FA Cup game against Norwich, but I would not want to see him on the pitch against Man City in April.
Whilst we're on that,
saying he's slower than Kabak, Iddy saying nah, and then saying Karalar.
24-man squad. Drew, just whilst we're on that, I want to keep prying your thoughts on this with...
Just keep giving you difficult questions, Drew.
With Carragher, and also everyone in the chat as well. Like, he's an interesting player to kind of look back on, because obviously he's a Scouse lad, obviously originally an Everton fan, which is a bit bizarre, but
we all make mistakes in our youth.
How much... you said it's good to have Scousers in the dressing room, people who understand the club. How much do you think that played a part in why he was kept around for so long? How good was he? Like, on a scale of defenders at the time versus now, whatever, how good was he really? Could you almost argue that maybe he's a Scott McTominay of back in his day? Like, he's just full of raw passion, raw desire, never going to give up, even if he doesn't necessarily have the quality? Or was he actually a good centre-back? I'll leave that one with you, Drew.
I'd say I'd give him an average of like 6.5. Like, I think like his highest peak was maybe like an 8.5. I never think I saw it. Like, I guess maybe an individual, like cup games and, the big occasions like that, he did show up and he could handle, top attacks in Europe. But I think he did that because of his desire for the club. Like, I think I remember reading an article it was maybe Cisse talking about the Champions League final. I'll do a little skip to link it together, but he was saying that Gerrard was the one in the locker room who was like, guys, like we can't go out against AC Milan in the Champions League final 2005, and Gerrard's like, guys, we cannot go out and lose this. This is my boyhood club, and we're being embarrassed. Like essentially along those lines. Like I will not like have us be the most embarrassing Champions League final. And he said that really like went out heart to heart. I see that with like Carragher in terms of not necessarily taking on those words, but taking on those actions of like he will not let himself like embarrass Liverpool Football Club. And I don't think he did on many occasions. I think he had like the 2 own goals against United, maybe. That'd be maybe his low point. But to try to answer every element of your question, I think he was an average player, and I don't like.
It's the average. It's as you said, isn't it? It's the extra 20% that he gave because he wanted to be at the club made him that above average player.
Yeah, I think the quality has changed, like the demands on the job for now. I'm curious to see if he could do it today, maybe in his peak I almost feel like he was better in his later years. He had that knowledge and experience. He's very, very intelligent guy for football wise. So, yeah, but I'd say a disservice comparing him to Scott McTominay and the Man U player. I get what you're saying though, but.
I like the honcho comparison Iddy makes, because I think Carroll was at his best next to Sami Hyypiä, where you had the big heading centre-back, and then Carroll was I'm just going to throw my face in the way, and hopefully that stops the ball from going in. I think that was, we're talking about a time where centre-back partnerships were that big man, little man sort of combo. And Sami Hyypiä, 3.5 million from William II, Carroll free. I think we got Marcus Babbel for free as well. And then Fabio Aurelio, let's just ignore that part, apart from the one free kick against Chelsea. So it was a very well put together central defence, really, at quite a cheap price. And I think Carra always had that never say die attitude that really sort of pushed him on. I think not as much talent as Milner, but the same sort of mentality of never give up. I will push through. I am mentally stronger than most, because every year, as Carra put in his book, Liverpool signed someone to replace him, and every year he took them down and ended up being first choice. I think he was just one of those mentality monsters that Klopp probably would have quite loved. But I think Anthony also said it. Nat Phillips. He's a modern, Nat Phillips is a modern day Carra. He's not the most gifted in the world, but he puts a shift in. I know you love Nat Phillips, don't you? Ned Flanders, I think someone called you in the chat, which I think is brilliant. You're on mute, Louis.
There we go. I like that. James, I want to make sure, because we've just grilled Drew a little bit, I want to make sure you don't miss out on anything. I just want to quickly, because obviously this is the title of this video is 10 years on. I think it's roughly 10 years from the last time we won this competition, Henderson being the only surviving member. But if you just bear with me one moment, I'll just go over that team and the substitutes bench, and then I'll start with you, James. Which players you would take to be a part of this current squad?
Okay.
So we had Pepe Reina, Glenn Johnson, Martin Skirtle, Daniel Agger, Jose Enrique, Gerrard, Charlie Adam, Henderson, Suarez, Stuart Downing, and Andy Carroll. Stuart Downing got man of the match, funnily enough, which is unbelievable. The substitutes, Donny. Do you remember Donny?
Donny, the Brazilian goalkeeper.
Didn't we get 2 red cards? Wasn't it like Reina went off and then Donny got sent off as well or something? Jamie Carragher, Martin Kelly, Maxi Rodriguez, Jay Spearing, Dirk Kuyt, Craig Bellamy. So I'll take Suarez and Gerrard out of the equation, and obviously Jordan Henderson still plays for us. Are there any particular names that stick out there? You can have them in their prime, the best they were playing. Any you take now?
Any I'd take now in their prime? I was a big fan of Craig Bellamy when he was at Newcastle. The way he used to sort of run the channels and just didn't stop running. I was a huge fan of his. I would quite liked him. I think Klopp would have liked Dirk Kuyt to play a Firmino type role. I don't think he'd have been on the right in this Liverpool team. I think he'd have been slap bang in the centre as he was for, I think it was Eindhoven, wasn't it? Or Feyenoord, even before he came to Liverpool. So I think those two stand out to me. Now, do I think they're better than prime versions of Firmino and even Diaz? Oh, probably not. But Bellamy is probably the one that I remember watching, thinking I would love to see him in a Liverpool shirt at some point. I think we got him a little too late.
Drew, Dirk Kuyt was always, in his time, he was kind of considered our engine, even though he played out on the wing most of the time. But he was seen as a very forward-thinking, highly aggressive in the press player. In his prime, could you have seen him maybe being a favourite of Klopp?
Yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of Dirk Kuyt. I think he was the first jersey that I got with a name on the back. And he's like, he definitely has the, as James alluded to, he's got the energy and the pressing. Like, he carried a lot of characteristics that Klopp likes. Skill level, I think he had a peak, but I don't have his stats in front of me, but I remember him scoring at least like 10 goals a season. And that's, not something to look over. I think that's showed his quality and his ability to get important goals. Like, he also did score important goals for the team, but I don't think he's necessarily better than any options we have now. But I think if you need a player to, put in a shift, like, he's always going to be able to do it. And I definitely like having that energy in the team. He was a player I always looked forward to seeing.
So just making sure we do go through the comments. Jen, I think she said it a couple of times. She's gone for Reina. James,
he's not better than Alisson, is he? He's
well,
better
maybe not
than
better than
Keller.
Alisson, but would you have him around? Obviously, Hylas said he would definitely be in our third spot at least, better than Adrian. But
yeah, I mean,
ways
Reina was famed for being like our left backs are now. Just we've all hopefully everyone's seen the image of Kostas' dancing in the final, and Reina was always that party starter, wasn't he? He was renowned for it. And I think Jen also said Maxi, and Maxi Rodriguez is brilliant, but I think he needed, for some reason, when Kenny was in charge, Maxi just turned into a completely different player and was just ruthlessly scoring. But I don't think for anyone else he really did that much, and that might just be my memories of it. But I
think he was very inconsistent. Like, he got a hat trick. He would get a hat trick out of nowhere, then he'd maybe score in the next 2 games, and then he'd kind of vanish for large parts of the season. Hyla says Kuyt is good a person off the pitch as on the pitch. Klopp would have loved him. And that's what I thought. I was gutted when he left. I think he left just before Brendan Rodgers came in, and that would have been quite good to see, because obviously Brendan Rodgers did play that football as well. Iddy uses a bit of profanity, but it does kind of tie into what I wanted to talk about, and I'll put that to both of you as well. 2 different finals, 10 years apart. Massive changes in the squad. Jordan Henderson, again, the only surviving player to play in both cups and win for us. Of course, I think there was that one in 2016 that we lost on penalties. Just in regards to like the context behind both of these games, like, what are your thoughts on that, James? The first one was, that ended up being our only trophy. Yes, we got to the FA Cup final and we were inches away from an Andy Carroll equaliser against Chelsea. But apart from that, we were fighting for 5th, 6th. Like, we got Europa League that season. It was Kenny's second stint. But I think even though we won it, we were all, there was a general feeling that, we're still not where we need to be. What were your thoughts on that? And like, it's obvious, but how much has that changed 10 years down the line with the same cup, and now there's a feeling of a quadruple potentially?
Yeah, I always look back at that, and I'm always a bit disappointed, because I think we got rid of Kenny too soon. I still feel it. Like his second trip back, he took all the cups seriously, took games seriously. He got us to 2 finals when we weren't doing anything. And then they replaced him with Rodgers. And I know how well Rodgers did, with the Suarez team and stuff like that. But Kenny was making huge progress and loving it. And he all had that good feel-good factor. It always irks me. But the team's night and day, isn't it? I think it's hard to think of a single player apart from probably Luis Suarez and Steven Gerrard that even make it into that squad. You feel bad for those 2 players having to play with Charlie Adam and Jose Enrique, don't you? Skirtle ruined his legacy when he moved to Turkey and then grew his hair out. That was the biggest shock I've ever seen in my life when he had hair. So I don't know. You look at it at the time, you're like, oh, we've got Gerrard, we've got this, and we've got a few players. We should be all right. But you look at this team now and you go, well, where's the weakness? People complain about Henderson, but he's one of the best leaders in the league. And there's
Drew, I'll come to you with kind of the same thing. Maybe focusing a bit more on Jordan Henderson. I keep repeating myself. Survived both finals. It's a long time apart, and he is the only surviving member. So no one's going to forget that now because they've heard it so many bloody times, this video.
I'm sure the tea ladies have made it through the whole thing.
Yeah. I can't remember what their names were, but I'm sure they made it with a few extra wrinkles. How massive is it for him, and how much could this potentially solidify his legacy? Like, I'm sure for most of us, Henderson is a legend, but there's always those doubters. Do you think this, coming full circle and in such different circumstances, do you think that will do much to win over a few more people about his legitimacy?
I'm not sure if the people the divisiveness around Henderson is really interesting. I think he's one of the rare players where people either love him or hate him, or rather, the people that hate him will not see change. I don't think they could do convincing. I think they probably say he was lucky to be in the squad. But I think his ability to adapt over how many different managers have changed to stick in the squad kind of speaks to Carragher's level of, determination to stick around and, force his name on the team sheet. So I think, just removing any subjectivity about his game and his performance, like, he is a long-standing servant of the club. He's been there, for now over 10 years, and his passion for Liverpool is clear. So I think, you have to respect that. And whether or not you're a fan of him on the pitch, he is a long-standing servant of the club, and he is a club legend in a way.
Matthias says that Agger was good, brilliant almost, but injuries plagued him so much. James, in your fair opinion, without those injuries, what was his ceiling? Was he a world-class centre-back?
Agger probably is more a modern-day centre-back because he had that wand of a left foot and could spray passes around and stuff like that. And we hadn't really got there. You're probably talking your Rio Ferdinands who were doing that, but they weren't doing the passes Agger was capable of. But, Mattis is right. He was always breaking down. I remember a goal against Chelsea where he hit it so sweetly and so hard it just flew into the goal. And he was great. He loved the club. He was a Liverpool fan. He wanted to be there. He was dying to still play for the club, but he just kept breaking down. I think he even retired early, didn't he, when he went back?
Yeah,
to Denmark,
very young.
just because his legs just kept giving up on him. And it's a real shame for players like that. I think about Daniel Agger's ceilings, probably similar with Ledley King, even though he didn't play for Liverpool. You just look at some of these players who, Ledley King never trained and then just came out and performed every week. What could have been if luck had just been slightly different? And it is, it's one injury, don't get, and you just get a run of games and stuff like that. It's fickle, isn't it, really?
Gary, thank you for getting involved, mate, says that Agger would be at home next to Virgil van Dijk. Drew, again, pretty much the same question, but I'll come to you. Daniel Agger in his prime, no injuries, so a bit of a hypothetical. Would he look at home next to Van Dijk? Could he have been a partner if we take them both at their best?
Yeah, and I'd argue that Agger was at the quality of Van Dijk. I think he, maybe not as big a presence, but like I always thought he was one of the best center backs on his day in the world. And yeah, it's just so unfortunate his injuries plagued him. I would have loved to see him in the squad. Like I think back to the season 13-14. Like if he was in the center back position there for the season, would we have won the league then? And I think the answer is yes, because we were kind of missing his quality in the back, and he's a phenomenal player. And I also I'm wondering just how much the medical side of the game has changed and advanced over the years, because it seems like we've done very well with injuries apart from last year, but even seeing like potential long-term injuries that would knock out a player for the rest of the careers. We've seen players come back into the fold after being injured and getting back to playing consistently. So I wonder if it's a bit on the luck side, the bad luck side, if they're unfortunate to be in a team when the medical side of the game wasn't as advanced as it is today.
Yeah, we've seen that with Matip as well. Like obviously he was one of those players who did seem to, we could only maybe get 5 to 8 games out of him before something went wrong. And this season, from all intents and purposes, it sounds like he's been on some sort of new physical regime, and at the moment it's paying wonders. Feels like this chat room is sort of turning into a bit of a reminiscence of players past, which is quite nice. Hyla says, mentions John Arnorisa, the left back with the sledgehammer of a foot, the goal against Man United, I'll never forget.
I remember
John
a goal.
was, of
it was
course,
a League Cup final, Louis. It was one that we lost to Chelsea. So it is relatively apt. Risa scored in the 3rd minute, about 3 yards away from goal, but caught it on his left peg and just slammed it in the goal. And because we scored so early, we just started defending from about the 10th minute onwards, and wave after wave of a Chelsea attack came until they eventually beat us. I think it was the League Cup final that they beat us, and I think that was 2005 when we did with the ghost goal. Because I think we'd played Chelsea that many times, but Reece, if he caught it, it was just gone, wasn't it?
Mm. I'll stay with you. How would he fare in today's team? Obviously, he wasn't involved in that cup final, but if we're looking back,
he wouldn't be good enough. Fare? No, he's a period of left back that Liverpool have since moved on from, and I think the Premier League since moved on from, which was, you think about John Arnorisa, Ian Hart, those types of coming in from the left, having a shot. Really now it's about constant movement, constant up and down the line. You're talking 5,000 meter runners type people, and then the crosses. You're talking crosses over left wing and a right wing level quality nowadays. So I don't think Reece would have made it in the current squad. I'm pleased he was there when we had him, because I think he was a very good option. I think if I was to think about someone that would translate from the olden days left back to now, I think probably more Jose Enrique, because I remember those looping balls he used to do for Suarez when he was playing at left back, and I never thought he was that great at left back for us, but he had something with Suarez where he knew when to pass it and Suarez had run. And that's a little bit more like how Liverpool play now than when John Arnorisa was at left back for me. Maybe Aurelio would be quite good now as well, but Risa, a little bit more of a...
Paul Konchesky, how would
he... Paul Konchesky, I mean, he'd be on Ballon d'Or now, wouldn't he?
Bloody hell. How the mighty have risen. Drew, now, Steve Finnan, I think I was probably just a little bit too young, and I just don't have any memories of Steve Finnan whatsoever. I think he was injured in the build-up to the 2005 Champions League final, and even then that was still a bit too young for me. Did you ever see much of Steve Finnan?
Just in highlights. That was a bit young for me as well, but I also remember how seeing Gerrard talk about him, and the players kind of classical always would rate him high. So from highlights and stuff, like I never saw him game in and game out, so I can't have a definitive opinion.
James, what about you? Because Drew, because I remember I brought a book when I was a kid.
Wow.
It was like best facts about Liverpool, and all of like the teams of the decade or teams of the century. At left back, Steve Finnan cropped up a lot of times. Was he really good?
Not at left back. He was a right back.
Sorry, no, you're right. It was right back.
He was terrible at left back.
Point stands.
Steve Finnan was. It was a time like. Damn it! I'm older than you both.
Back in the black and white days.
Yeah, in ye oldie times. So Steve Finnan pretty much followed a bit of a path that Liverpool went down, which was solid defending right backs who rarely went above the halfway line. So you probably had Steve Finnan, Marcus Babbel came to us for free. He was a German international at the time. And then before that, you had Rob Jones. And these were the best way I can describe it is shorter than they needed to be a centre-back, but good enough to be a centre-back. So they'd push in and it'd be quite a narrow defence. And he was I think he was at Fulham before he came to Liverpool, and someone's going to fact check me on that and tell me I'm wrong, but I think he was at Fulham before Liverpool or Charlton. He was Fulham or Charlton. And he was dominating things from that hand side. So no teams were attacking down there. And that's when Liverpool went and made a move for him. He was a good defender. I mean, all I'm looking at is Matthias's comment, which is Dimitriore. And I think about him trying to do a Cruyff turn into his own net. Jimmy Shore, that's all I can think about. He was like an ice skating spider, Jimmy Torare. So Finnan was just infinitely better than Torare. But yeah, good defender.
I don't remember Ali Sissoko. I think he was just a loanee, wasn't he? But he was
French,
awful,
wasn't he? Left back.
He was absolutely dreadful. I don't know if he played in the Europa League final or was he around for that?
He was no Jimmy Traore. I can tell you that much. He
wasn't
was
as bad.
Probably the worst player I've ever seen.
Moreno was our Europa League final. I can't forget him getting megged.
Yeah. Well, he got very defensive about that in an interview when he was he's at Villarreal now. He talked about how he felt like he unfairly kind of got scapegoated, just briefly, because this isn't what we were talking about, but how much does that hold up for you, James? I never particularly rated Moreno. I thought he was okay going forward, but defensively, I never really got it. In that final, particularly, do you think there was an element of being scapegoated?
He wasn't a good defender, was he? Not from memory. He was quick. He was a good lad to have around by the seams of things, but nothing strikes me as he was brilliant.
No. And that's all Alberto Moreno's worth here. Matthias's vote for worst ever player. That's a good one. Everybody. Get your worst players in the chat and we'll reminisce about them. Christian Poulsen. Again, I just have no real memories of him because it was probably that bad. The same with the likes of Jovanovic, who is it, Voronin, all those kinds of players.
Milan Jovanovic.
Yeah.
He was a free.
I remember him missing a header.
He was so bald. He was balding so quickly.
He missed a header like in the midfield. Like he went to head and he missed it. He fell on his face. I was like, oh God.
That pretty much summed us up in the late 2000s, early
peak Roy Hodgson years.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm going to go with Joe Cole.
For worst.
It's the worst because his reputation and what he'd done before was good. And when he signed for us, garbage. I don't even think he had a good game. I mean, if someone can point me to a good game.
Did you hear his comment? Did you hear his comment about how he felt about Liverpool? He's like, when I moved there, I felt like no love for the club. I just didn't see why.
Because he got sent off on his bloody debut, wasn't it? Was that
Arsenal?
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised he didn't feel the love at that point. I mean, I thought he was well received when he first.
No, like he didn't love the club. Like he had no feelings towards the club.
Oh, right. Okay, I see. Interesting.
Who's
Why
your worst, Drew?
It's hard to gauge. Like, I'm wondering, like, is it players who just never appeared for the club, like popped in the squad or popped out, or players who like consistently somehow kept the name in the team? Because I think it's hard to look past Polson that 1 year. That was dreadful. Because he played a good amount of games. Or Konchesky, same kind of. That Hodgson year probably has a number of names worth mentioning. Or
Carrius?
No, because it was the one game. It was the one game. I'm part of the
It's a
goalkeeper
pretty big
committee.
game, isn't it?
No, I know, but I'm part of the goalkeeper committee. Like, if a midfielder makes the same level of mistake, it doesn't always lead to a goal. But with a keeper, it does, and it's just it's a horrible thing.
Cracking pull out, Matthias.
How old? Yeah. When did he play?
I think he was an Argentinian left winger, like the next big thing, and it just nothing happened.
Oh, 2007. He was
like a bit like Mark Gonzalez. I think he was from Chile, and he was just rubbish.
Well, El Hadj Diouf in that equation.
Oh, he's high up
before
there,
my time.
One good World Cup, and Salif Diao came at the same time. But at least Salif Diao hasn't tried to ruin the name of Steven Gerrard.
I'm just going to look. I'm looking up the list of all Liverpool players ever. So,
well, that's
just talk amongst yourselves quickly whilst I try and find some that I can remember.
Ooh, do you remember Robbie Keane?
Yeah, I remembered Robbie Keane. I was excited, and then he just was in and out.
Jan Kronkamp, he was a right back, I think.
Who would you say is the player you were most excited when we signed and then just didn't pan out whatsoever?
Ooh. It's a cracking question. Fernando Morientes.
Okay.
I thought he was going to be sensational for us. I thought, right, this is a centre forward who's done it in Real Madrid, done it for Spain national team. He knows what he's doing, and he just didn't do anything for us, did he? I think he got like 2 goals. Best way I can describe him for anyone that doesn't remember him is Alvaro Morata. Now, he came to England, did nothing, went all over the place. And in Spain he seems to score goals, but anywhere else he's just not doing anything. I thought he was going to be the biggest thing we'd ever done, and it just didn't pan out.
Yeah, for me, I had an interesting one. This was like one of the last times I bought a name on the back of the jersey, and it was Alberto Aquilani. But
it's a good 20 million, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that actually ended up saving me. It was one of the first times I went to England. I worked at a library in high school, saved up for my senior year trip. And then I went to see Liverpool versus West Ham in like a pub, and I was by myself, and it turned out to be like a gnarly West Ham pub. And there were these guys sitting behind me, like kicking the back of my chair, like throughout the game, like to the point where in Liverpool, I think it was 3-0 at the end. José Benayoun scored. And then this one girl was just like, stop. And then I like didn't know what to do at that point. I was about to, like, they were forcing me to do something. And then one guy gave me an out, and he's like, this dude doesn't understand a word I'm saying. He's Italian. Because I had the Aquilani jersey on. But
excuse me! You're trying to get out the bar.
Yeah, exactly. And I like slyly went out the door. So that's the 20 mil for memory for me of Aquilani.
This site I've found, it's got some good players, but it's savage as well. So more recently, Iago Aspas, he went on to do really well.
He's done really well, hasn't he?
But I think he's just remembered for that abysmal corner at the end of the Chelsea game. I think that kind of blighted it. He didn't really do much anyway, but there's even a Twitter account just called Iago Aspas Corners, I'm pretty sure.
He still played. He's played for Spain, hasn't he? He made it.
Yeah, he done really, really well.
Yeah, he's like all-time scorer for Celta Vigo, right? Or somewhere up there.
I just think Liverpool was I always think some players, a club can be too big for them. Like the pressure can be too much for them. They just can't deal with it. And I think Iago Aspas is a big fish in a small pond type player.
Yeah.
He needs to be that main man, and that's it. I think St. Maximum's a bit like that as well. I don't think he wants to be on the world stage. I think he wants to be loved and adored by the team that he plays for. There was
Charlie
nothing wrong
Adam
with
at
Rigobert's
Blackpool.
song, Matthias. He was a cracking defender.
El Hadji Diouf, 2002, 15 million euros.
Yeah, that was off the World Cup. Senegal had a good run, and we signed 2 players from them, El Hadji Diouf and Salif Diao.
But he spat at one of the home fans.
Yep.
In a UEFA Cup clash. Bloody hell, I didn't know that. Sean Dundee, that sounds like one you might know, James. 1998,
Not
before
really.
I was
He didn't
born.
really get any game time, but Iddy's put a good one on there. Luis Alberto. Like what he's
Another
gone on
one.
to
He's
as well.
similar to Aspas, isn't he? He's doing well in the Liga.
Oh yeah, he's with Lazio, right? With Lucas.
I think he's like
got
their
a
main
really
man.
big reputation now, hasn't he? Like,
What about Fabio Barini? Whatever happened to him?
He's on this list as well. I don't know where he is now, actually.
I think he's nowhere. I tell you what, he's the luckiest player in world football. I think he went from Liverpool. He got to Liverpool, and then I think he went to Swansea, and then he went to AC Milan out of nowhere. I think he went to someone else that's big, and he's shocking. He was a bad player.
Balotelli, I mean, I don't think he could be anybody's worst signing ever. But what did we think of his time at Liverpool? I think most fans were so desperate, like than with any other player. They were desperate for him to do really well, but he just couldn't maintain any sort of consistency in a red shirt.
He's just got back in the Italy squad, hasn't he?
Who is he? Yeah, who is he with at the moment?
He is with Adama Demispor, which is Turkey.
Yeah, and he's in the Italian squad.
Just got back in. Yeah, 10 goals in 20 appearances. He made 16 appearances for Liverpool, getting 1 goal.
That was a bizarre transfer window. Just started buying everyone at that point. Reminded me of when Arsenal kind of got beat by Man U 8-2 and then just bought like 4 players on transfer deadline day.
So we were trying to get Alexis Sanchez, weren't we? Because Sanchez was talking about it before the Inter game, how he made the wrong move in going to Arsenal and should have gone to Liverpool.
Well, that shows how far our transfers have come, because I remember with Kenny's season, we went out and bought Stuart Downing when we were meant to get Ashley Young, because they were both at Aston Villa at the time, and we missed out on Young and just said, "I'll sod it. We'll go for his opposite number and get Stuart Downing for £20 million." Got Charlie Adam, who was kind of that big fish, small pond with Blackpool, and I think he scored against us in both Premier League fixtures against Blackpool the previous season. So we just said, "Oh, he must be good then." So we went and bought him and stuck him next to Gerrard, which is a crime in itself. And there were a few others as well. And now we're prizing top assets away from other elite clubs, with Luis Diaz snatching him from under Tottenham, and apparently now West Ham's grasp as well. David Moyes thought he was pretty confident of signing him. I mean, sorry, Hyler, he says you guys have got me depressed, but Drew, that's something to be positive about, isn't it?
Yeah, we can definitely sail towards to the present and the future for the club. I'm down with that. And yeah, I think that just shows like the slow build. I think Arsenal is like we need to copy the Liverpool model, and I felt very good about that, because it kind of, you look at Klopp when he came in, changing doubters to believers. I think that's sums up the club, and we like the transition. I think Rodgers helped us like with the necessary next step, but when Jurgen came in, like he just slowly built a team that just came together quite quickly and is challenging the biggest clubs. I think you don't have to look further away than the Champions League against Barcelona to see us competing against the best club in the world, or one of the old best clubs. So to see our transition and who we're buying now, it's very precise, and I love it. Like Van Dijk's another one. I know he was scouted by I think it was City and United wanted him. We keep getting the right players at the right time, and we're turning players with bags of potential into world-class players. I think the Luis Diaz is the perfect, who really had the eye on him for the big clubs, but now every big club's wishing they would have, saw him before Liverpool did.
James, just, we've been on for about 50 minutes now to kind of bring it back centered. We've listed off a bunch of players who were terrible. Not in a depressing way, I don't think, in a quite sort of reminiscent, thank God, look at where we are now kind of way. And speaking of which, we've got this trophy that we hyped up for the last month or so once we knew we were in the final. I made a point yesterday of saying that, between now and midnight, celebrate it like mad, but it is still February. This isn't an FA Cup. This isn't a Champions League where the season's over now. How important is it? And I'm sure the players are doing this because you can tell they want it. How important is it that we now do put it to one side and make sure that we are focused on the next game?
I think they will be using it as fuel more than they will be using it as a celebration. Look at the fans and how they've reacted to this. Imagine if you bring the Premier League or the Champions League back to these fans again, because you saw what happened when you won the Champions League last time. We can bring a few more in this season. If we can bring the Premier League to this fan base live, imagine what will happen. And it's just that little bit of flavour for those who've not won something with us yet to go, this is what I want to, this is what I want. This is why I came. This is why I want to follow Klopp into war. This is why we talk about what we do as we do every day in training. This is why we've invested in this AXA training centre to bring out the best. I think the League Cup is a starter. If it's a meal, it was a starter, isn't it? To get everyone's appetite ready for the main course, which is Champions League and Premier League. And hopefully we can have the dessert of the FA Cup. But it's got to be the start of something. Apart from Matty, he was drunk celebrating.
Drew, so that's a good point. It's fuel. And talking of fuel, obviously last season and coming off the back of winning the first title in 30 years, that not only us, but the players as well were robbed of that celebration. They obviously got the Champions League number 6, but we expect a Champions League at Liverpool. Winning number 30 and getting that celebration stolen from at the grasp of their hands, will that also be a factor? Because the commentators yesterday did mention that, and I saw on Twitter a lot, that these players, Klopp especially, relies and lives and breathes off of the atmosphere, the fan interaction as well. Do you think that they're using that almost anger and bringing it all together now with this Carabao Cup win to say, look, we can go and win and do amazing things this season and finally get what we deserved, which is a gigantic piss up in the Liverpool city centre?
Yeah, I think it's all fuel for the fire. Like, I remember at the beginning of the season, I couldn't believe that how many pundits were putting us as like barely making fourth. I think they completely slept on Liverpool, and you see that in the players too. Like, you see the celebrations. I love how much, I love seeing the comments saying like tin pot trophy, and it's not it's the League Cup, settle down. And it's like, I remember that marketing phrase Liverpool had a few years ago, this means more. And I thought that perfectly captured Liverpool winning trophies and just Liverpool in general. And seeing the players, I think that this just adds that extra validation that, you shouldn't have slept on Liverpool. They're arguably the best club in the world, and let's carry on from here. And, let's show it to them, because they're in perfect position to challenge on all remaining 3 fronts. And everything that comes their way is fuel for the fire.
I'd say this, Louis, and this isn't a dark way of looking at it, but it is the truth of the situation. We have multiple of our front 3 with 18 months left on their contract. This could very well be, for some very big players, their last season with this club. and I think it's showing. I think the level of performance, the level of effort, the level of drive this era of players have got, they're demonstrating that we're going out with our name in history. We know that version 2 is on its way and Klopp's going to rebuild again, but this might be our end of an era and we're going down in Liverpool history, and we'll be damned if we'll let people forget what we've done here. Because that's how some of it looks. How angry Mane was when he came off. I think some of these players are looking at this going, I know this is it, and I'm going to make sure it sticks. And it's great to see.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I get, there is an element of sadness there that it feels like we're coming towards an end of an era, but we're not there just yet, and there's still so much football to be played, and who knows what could be at the end of it. Tying things up slightly, Hyla has a question, and this will probably be the last question that we kind of go through. He says, with Liverpool pursuing all these cups, do we have a good enough squad in terms of durability, injuries to do it all? Will this hurt us in the end? So I'm going to take that as, let's assume the Premier League is our main focus, which it probably is. It's our do or die. It's our bread and butter. Drew, I'll start with you. Do we have the squad? There's been a lot of positivity with Diaz coming in, with all those injuries coming back, Elliott, Jones in and around the squad, Thiago. Just in your personal opinion, do we have the squad to challenge on still 3 fronts for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I believe we do. I think what it comes down to is the FA Cup, really. And I think that one would be on the chopping block if it comes down to a bad draw. Like, let's say we draw Man City or someone like that in the next round. Does Klopp then put in our starting 11 for that game with potential Champions League fixture and a big Premier League fixture in the next consecutive games? And I think it's no. I think he'll treat the competition at this point as still a chance for fringe players, maybe 1 or 2 senior players, a couple of those guys in the squad. So, but that being said, we definitely have the ability, like the backup of our squad, our fringe players and our second team are at like levels above where they were in previous years. And Norwich will be an example. Whoever we field against Norwich, I'm going to be excited to watch the game because it's going to be good players. So I think we do have the depth. I think how far we advance in the FA Cup might come down to if we get some lucky draws, but we definitely have the squad to challenge for the remaining 3 trophies. And I don't think we have to worry about that.
And James, as well, I'll come to you, not just to challenge, but to potentially win all 3 of them. There's still got the second leg of the Champions League against Milan, and then essentially five games if we get all the way that would be added to our fixture list. We've got Norwich in the FA Cup on Wednesday, and that's the 5th round. So Then there's 3 more games, I want to say, until the final. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're playing 2, potentially 3 times a week, have we got enough quality to rotate and keep players fresh?
We've definitely got enough quality. But what we're asking for here, let's be clear, is we're asking for a team that's just gone on a 10-game perfect run to have another 20-game perfect run.
Yeah.
We are expecting the impossible. Now, granted, we might lose one of the legs of the Champions League and come back and stuff like that. We need some luck in this. Yeah. So we need to potentially draw against a Norwich or a Cardiff or an easier Champions League where we can be off our game and then bring it back, because there is no way we're going to be perfect all the way through and play to our best. We're going to need luck on the way, and I'm talking about fair luck, not this, it was a handball, the referees association come out and say it was a handball, sorry, we got it wrong, do you want us to shine the trophy for you, Man City? I mean fair luck along the way where we might lose a game or draw a game and come back and, like a Barcelona type situation.
Yeah.
But there's no reason it's not possible. It's the biggest and best squad we've ever had that I can remember. Midfield, you can rotate take Fabinho out of it, those midfield two can pretty much, you can mix in Keita, Curtis, Harvey, Henderson, Milner. There's a raft of people you can bring in. Front three, there's a raft of people. Centre backs, there's a raft of people. Just take Van Dijk out. Trent, 2 left backs. There's a level of comfortability with this which doesn't feel very Liverpool. Normally it's a strong first 11 and everyone's going, well, if they lose someone, then they're going to be at risk. But yeah, we're in a good space.
And yeah, as you said, talks of a quadruple, we are asking for the impossible. Last question for you both. From this point, realistically, what is the minimum for you to consider this season a success? And Drew, I'll come to you first.
I'd say minimum 1 more trophy. But I already think we're a success, so to speak. But I think it'd be a sour taste if we, League Cup was the only cup we had in the trophy cabinet at the end of the year. So I'd say minimum 1 more. I think we'll get 2 more.
And James, what about you?
Yeah, it needs to be one of the big ones. I agree with Drew. It needs to be one of the big ones. Like a League Cup and an FA Cup would have a bit of a tinge of disappointment to it. So I think, but if it was League Cup and the League, I'd be happy. If it was League Cup and Champions League, I'd be happy. If it was a League Cup and the FA Cup, I'd probably be happy after a little bit of disappointment, depending on how we went out. But
yeah,
I want one of the big ones. Granted, if Man U fall outside the top 4, I'll be happy for a completely different reason. But I want one of the big ones and one of the others.
Well, fantastic. And Matthias says he thinks there's 2 more to come. I'm sure we're all very positive at this point. Who knows what twists and turns await us in the remaining months of the season. Hyla saying Liverpool lost the league with 97 points. You have to be perfect to beat Man City. And we've seen recently that Man City aren't perfect themselves. The gods
thankfully that
handed them
12th man of
victory.
theirs in the VAR booth.
Yeah. Chris Kavanagh.
We've got Anfield. They've
part.
got VAR.
And Dan says that James got us sentimental with his comments about the end of an era. I agree. I think someone should clip that up. That's motivation and inspiration in itself from James. Look, it's been a great discussion. We've been at it for an hour. Again, the chat room guided by our lovely viewers in the live chat. We've had a good time. It's been all over the place. We've recapped some awful footballers who've played for Liverpool. And that's what it's all about. We're just off the back of winning a trophy, and Liverpool fans, of course, look to be realistic and almost take stock of what they've got as opposed to a few years ago. So all good fun, but now we do look ahead to the future. If you are new here, I doubt it. This is a show for the regulars, the chat room. Please do consider liking this video and subscribing if you haven't done already. We do go live pretty much every day with all your Liverpool content. We also have watch-alongs, so the FA Cup versus Norwich City on Wednesday will be live here with all your build-up and post-match reaction with the watch-along as well. James, thank you very much for starting off this video and continuing. And Drew, thank you very much for being here once again, and hopefully, well, I'm sure I'll speak to you both very soon anyway. Everybody in the chat and everybody watching, thank you very much for watching. This has been the LFC Transfer Room, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.